turn down the volume a little bit, then that can be really useful, because then we can just rest a bit more in silence and wonder, right? Wonder about what's going on. And then the question I love to ask is, well, what does your body want you to know?
Hello there, and welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, where midlife isn't a time of crisis, but a time of metamorphosis. Just like the journey through puberty and pregnancy to postpartum, our midlife transition is also a powerful portal of rebirth. The wise woman inside of us is calling, inviting us to slow down, to take stock, to speak our truth, to burn away all that no longer serves us, ready to step forward into our next phase of life. I'm your host, Kylie Fatchett, storyteller and midlife self-care coach, and together we'll unearth the real and raw stories of women who are right in the messy, magical middle, or have come out the other side, and the healers who help all of us through these crossroads of change. I hope that as you listen to these tales of breaking the ties that bind, shedding skins, and courageously chasing midlife dreams, that you too will answer the wise woman's invitation and set yourself wild and finally fucking free. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the podcast. Today, I'm with the beautiful Tania Elfersy. How are you, Tania?
I'm fine, although I have a strange voice, so I apologize.
You do. I think that this is the perfect around what we're going to be talking about and the wisdom of our body, because you were just saying, yes, you feel like you should say something about something, but there isn't actually any point. But yes, your voice has gone a bit cranky. So, for those people in the podcast audience that don't know you already, could you give us a little intro to who you are and what you're about in the world?
Yes. So I have been in this menopause space, perimenopause and menopause space since 2015, when I had a spontaneous healing experience of my symptoms. And since then, I've been supporting women through encouraging them to really tap into the existing wisdom in their body, which just because our hormones go in flux and, leads us down to a sensitive time in life, the wisdom never leaves us. And I've really seen that when we do that and we really regain trust in our body, healing just happens and we move back into a much more peaceful state. We can move through life with a lot more harmony. And so this has been my passion since I realized what happened to me was quite strange and it could be helpful to others. And I'm about busting those myths and supporting women at this time, really trying to bring a change at this time of change.
Yeah, the change about the change. Now, I want to ask so many questions, but let's start at the very obvious point of what do you mean by spontaneously healed from menopause symptoms? Because as soon as I read spontaneous, I was like, an angel came down from heaven and wrapped her up and she was, oh. And now I'm like, I'm sure that's not what you mean. But what do you actually mean by spontaneous healing?
Yeah. So at the time, I had been experiencing perimenopause symptoms since about the age of 43. I'm now 54, so just coming out of the menopause time.
The tunnel.
I'm just like in the year when my periods have disappeared, and who knows, there might be another one or two. But,
who knows?
We'll see. Yeah. So it's been going on for a while, and it took me a while to understand what was going on. The first few years, I was just like, oh God, I feel like I'm falling apart. What's going on? I was getting sick a lot. And this is really unusual that I have a voice like that. But yeah, it seemed like the kids were giving me lots of stuff. I don't think they were giving me lots of stuff. I think, I was just in a frequency that I was just feeling low, and I had mood swings, and that wasn't like me, and frequent migraines and some hair loss. And I was just running around acupuncture and herbs, and I was always on a more natural path through health. And I had no idea what was going on. Literally just felt like I was falling apart, couldn't understand it. And then I heard Dr. Christian Northrup actually talk on a webinar and say, lots of women in their 40s have like PMS on steroids. And I was like, that's me. That's exactly how I feel. PMS on steroids.
And for longer than PMS would be,
I was having PMS for 2 weeks of every month. And I started tracking it. Yeah. It was like physically and emotionally, there were 2 weeks of every month where I felt absolutely, quite normal. Yeah. And then 2 weeks when I felt very, very rough.
Yes.
And so that was like, wow, this is so interesting. Perimenopause, who knew? So I started asking all my 40-something friends, do you know we're going through the change? Nobody knew. And I also thought at that time, that's when I'm 51. And I don't know why I thought it would be like in a click.
Yes, it's really though. I kind of vaguely thought it happened in my 50s and my periods would stop. That was pretty much the only two thoughts that I had. And it was called The Change by generations that had come before.
And I guess maybe we'd heard of hot flushes or something.
Yes.
But I had no idea. So I thought, well, this is really interesting because I thought I was educated on women's health, but I know nothing about it. So how is that? And of course, these days there's a lot more talk about perimenopause and menopause than there was back then. But I think at that time, what had happened is menopause had been pushed to be this point in time. And the population wasn't that educated that actually it takes time and it can take up to 10 years or more for the change to happen. And if I look back, I have an old copy of the book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, this sort of like women's health Bible.
Yes.
And in there from like, I think it was 1991, my edition. And in there, it talks about menopause as a long time of change. And perimenopause isn't mentioned. And then I went through and checked, what happened in, an edition 5 years later and 10 years later.
Yes.
And it changed and perimenopause, was put in and then it became a chapter. And then, but back then, when we were in our 40s, we had no idea. So I thought, well, this is interesting because it's a framework. Okay, I don't feel so crazy. But then I went in and started looking, and all the discussion is about your hormones, your hormones, your hormones.
Yep.
And I thought, why would my hormones be getting it wrong? Because I've had pretty, amazing relationship with my hormones, actually. I've had 3 natural pregnancies, 3 natural births. And it's just like, well, my body got all that right. And now it's gone stupid. So why would that make sense? So I was like asking all these questions and I just was, when I was lucky enough through my births and postpartum to have this experience of my body, it was really incredible. I mean, just, I really sat in the miracle of it all and appreciated it. And I couldn't sort of suddenly block that out and say, oh, well, that was then, but now miracles don't apply. So I was like, well, what is it? And then what was going on at the time was published a book on motherhood, and the whole creative process had been amazing. It just flowed. And then, before becoming a mum, I had left the corporate world. And in the corporate world, I'd been working in marketing and tech companies. And it was just at the time when the whole sort of like internet marketing changed and social media, like when I was in tech, that we didn't use social media and we barely used blogs or anything.
Yeah, I know, right?
I remember those days. Right? So I came with my, my gorgeous book. I worked with a friend, we co-authored it. But then I was taking on as the publishing project. This was like my little baby coming to the world, coming back into work after having my kids. And, they were all in, nursery school and stuff in school. So I took it on, but I felt, I don't know anything about how to market this. I mean, I used to be, top of my game, but I don't know anything.
It's like a whole new world.
It's a whole new world. So I was like, I need to ask everyone else, like, what to do. So the creative process came from within, but then, like the business bit, I was like, I need to sell this number of books and I need all this help because I know nothing about marketing these days. So that was a struggle, strangely, because I wasn't listening to any inner voice. How unusual. So that was just like, really, working really hard and not feeling like I was getting very far.
Yeah.
And then my kids were still, reasonably young. So I was juggling both worlds and not feeling really great in it and feeling like I was not enough, which so many women have this feeling and for different reasons. So, we were like, oh, well, that was your little business and, motherhood. But they, could be big reasons why women don't feel enough. Yes. And they could say, I've never had, the relationships I wanted, or I made a mistake staying in corporate and I should have left corporate, or I didn't become a mother or I did become a mother and I don't want to become, or my mother never loved me. There could be all these reasons. And it comes down to this, I'm not enough. And so when I heard this, no one else was telling me. I heard it in myself and I took it seriously and I believed it and I felt really bad. And then I would do lots of things to try and feel enough, right? So
lots of external stuff. Right.
Yeah. And going to yoga and affirmations and et cetera, et cetera. And or I did do them well, or I didn't do them well, but nothing changed. So then I felt like even more of really not enough.
Because I'm trying really hard to be enough and feel enough and I'm still not enough.
I'm still not enough.
Yeah.
So there was a struggle, but deep down, I think I knew that couldn't be true. Like, why would I not be enough? Why would that be true? But it certainly there was a lot of noise. And then I came across an understanding of our psychological and spiritual experience in life called The Three Principles of Innate Health. And I just heard it. I heard someone talking about it. I thought, that's interesting. And I bought a book and I had an insight suddenly, which was, I don't have to take my thinking seriously.
Yeah.
And in fact, if I don't, life will be easier. And it's so simple. But for me, it was like, oh, wow, that's such freedom. I didn't know that if a thought came into my head and it made me feel bad, I didn't have to believe it. I just thought, well, I feel really bad, so there's something I need to do, and there's something really serious going on. Because, wow, it feels so uncomfortable. I didn't know I could have a different relationship with my thinking. And it didn't matter what thought it was. I didn't need to take it seriously. So realizing I had this choice. Oh, why didn't anyone tell me this? But it was suddenly something felt like it landed. And I thought, I think I'm not going to have PMS anymore, because it felt like that was, my PMS was about me, taking my thinking seriously, about not being enough and believing it. And then I saw, I don't have to believe it. That's an option. And life will be easier if I don't. Oh yeah, I don't think I'm going to have PMS. And within a few days, all my symptoms cleared up. So by then I was having night sweats and the migraines and the 2 weeks of PMS and lots of skin problems like eczema, things like that. And all kinds of other things. And they all just disappeared. At first I was like, okay, this is interesting. But I thought, surely they're going to come back. But they didn't. They stayed away. And it was just 9 months later, actually, again, about school. My kids' school.
Yeah.
There was an issue at my kids' school. And there was there was this teacher who shouldn't be in a classroom. And for some reason, the head teacher was, defending her. And my husband and I were like, okay, this needs to change. And all the parents were with us to begin with, and then they were all dropping out. And so I had a lot of thinking about all the parents being too scared to confront the head teacher. And so there was a lot of emails and a lot of emotion, and my symptoms slowly started coming back. And I was like, I am a failure. That was all made up.
It was enough, and then it wasn't. I forgot.
No, not enough again. And then I had another insight, and I was like, joy is my default. Actually. And all the symptoms went away again.
How did it feel in your body when you had the thought of joy is my default?
Yeah, I just felt like it's just this relaxation and realization that just because there is these issues playing out, I can be angry in a school meeting. I can write an email however I want. But that doesn't mean that I move away from my potential to always tap into my joy.
Yes.
And so I can have, a moment in a meeting, and then I can return to joy. Because that's my default. And all of us are born with that. We all, as kids, we come out, we're curious, as long as we're not hungry or we need a, nappy change or something like that, then we're just happy and curious and light. And so that is our default. But we've got so used to not being in that state that we think if it comes along, then that's the exception, when actually it's our default. And so we can move out and be in rage or upset, any feeling like that, it's fine. And the body knows how to bring us back into joy, into calm. And there actually is our truth.
That's what I was going to say. That's the truth. Everything else is just learned conditioning, addiction to drama, whatever, getting that hit from being, that's why I'm interested to hear what that feels like to you, because I don't have the insight that joy is my default. What I have been living into more and more and more, which is a big shift for me, coming from an environment as a kid living in chaos and believing that chaos was my birthright. Pretty much, that really was what I used to think. And over the last couple of years, and this has been a gift of perimenopause for me, because when I had no more in the tank to actually be everything for everybody, or try to be everything for everybody, which was ridiculous anyway, I could so clearly see that it was actually me playing out like that hero and getting the dopamine hit from being the fixer and the caretaker and whatever. And I had this awareness of my default being, it just actually feels, I've got it on my bedside table at the moment. It's peaceful, quiet, calm. So it's not so much joy. And that's where I'm at the moment. I don't know whether that will shift, but even that awareness of when I hear my thinking and my, very well conditioned I just talk about the tracks in my head that I've learned chaos as a kid are like those yellow slides at McDonald's. It's like you can't see it without going down it, like very irresistible and well-worn. But I'm getting much better and much better and much better. Like I feel like every day I'm getting better at standing there and going, I can see that I'm about to step on the irresistible yellow slide of going and fixing something, or, stepping into the staying angry after the fact and getting all that emotional blah, blah, blah. But I just realize it's so much freaking nicer to live and simpler and more spacious, and also give space for people to have their own responsibility for their own life experience and, all of those things. So I wonder if everyone has a different sort of sense of what I do think that karma and peace and joy are our birthrights in terms of, or our nature is what I want to say, is our nature. And yes, other stuff can murky up the windscreen a bit sometimes, but the more awareness you have, the better, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting that you noticed a difference in symptoms when you were tempted to kind of be away from that central default. Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode.
Yeah. And what you were just sharing there reminds me of a quote from someone called Jack Pransky, who says, we're all peace, love, and understanding. Mm-hmm. And we all have the ability to convince ourselves that we're not.
Yes.
That's not an exact quote, but more or less what he says. And it's like, that's our free will. But we operate within that free will without consciousness so often, just because it's not part of our culture to tell us, oh, here's your default. Like there's that peace, love, and joy.
Well, there's no money in having that default. Like there's no commercial success in telling people that you're perfectly fine the way you are. You must teach them that they're broken and that something needs fixing and whatever. Like, fill in the blank there.
Yeah. And so in our culture, I'm sure it's different in other cultures, but in our culture, there is like the default then becomes, oh, you can be stressed and you can be angry and you can be anxious. And you begin to believe that that is your default, when actually, no, we were all born into that joyful, curious, restful, light state. And then as we got older and we started taking our thinking seriously about things, that began to shift. So, a kid who tries to walk and falls over doesn't then say, that's it, I'm not trying for the rest of the day, because I'm such a failure. Yeah. Or, they try and draw a house and it turns out like an elephant, and they don't say, that's it, I'm never going to draw again because I am a failure, right? Yeah. No, kids don't do that. They just take everything lightly. Yeah. But we grow up with the idea of who we're supposed to be and what things are supposed to look like, and that stress is normal. And no, it's not.
It's normal.
Yeah, and we can hang out in all of those emotions. That's our human experience. But when we come into sort of a higher state of consciousness, we can be aware that there's always an option to fall back to our default, our more joyful, our more peaceful default. And the body knows how to do that automatically. It's like a ball underwater. Like it takes a lot of time, pressure to keep the ball underwater. Let your hands go, it bounces back to the surface. And that's exactly the way our psychological immune system, if you like, works. We let it go and it will come back because it wants to. And this is what I've really seen about the body, that it cannot from a place that isn't love, right? Every symptom that we experience is either an attempt to overcome some kind of chaos that we in our innocence has created. So, for example, let's take it to a very different physical level. If we've eaten something that's not good for us, the body goes into this enormous, physical emotion to get that out of the body. And we don't think at that time, oh, this is my body being stupid, it's malfunctioning. No, we understand, okay, I had something that needs to come out. Let it come out, and it's done. But for some reason, we think, oh, well, those symptoms could be intelligent, but the symptoms I experience at midlife, that's malfunction.
Is that crazy, isn't it?
It's all intelligent. It's intelligent. An attempt, what I've seen in my life and with work with clients, is an attempt to wake us up and to bring us back to a path of good health. It's not about malfunction. It's not about that we're somehow broken. It's not about that our hormones suddenly become stupid. It's none of that. Why would that make any sense? It's all about the body acting from love, trying to bring us back into balance. And it expresses that love in many different ways, depending on, it seems, our sensitivities. For example, not every woman has severe eczema. I've always had sensitive skin. So that's where it came out for me. Literally, I would go to people's houses or restaurants and it was like I was using acid to wash my hands. Yeah. And you had this insight. Believe me, the bathroom soaps in the world did not change. Yeah. But I no longer had that reaction to it because I had removed that chaos, that internal chaos that I had innocently created through stress. And suddenly my body could just, get along with, whatever's out there, and it meets a soap that's not so great. It knows how to detox it. Yeah. So, that's like a really, physical symptom. How did that work? But that's just the power of what's going on and the creative, we're creative partners in our health, right? And we can use that creative free will
for good or evil.
To, get us on the train of, disruption and chaos, and innocently, because I don't believe anyone wants to suffer. Or we can see that we have a choice. And even if we go on the train to fear and anxiety, we can say, oh, I know, I do have the option at any time to come off and say, that's my thinking and it's not true. And where is the peace? Where's the light? Because there's my truth.
Yeah, what feels better? What feels better? Yeah. As you're talking about the soap, what is coming to my mind is, actually, it's kind of similar to what I was reading, the work of Faith. I can never remember her last name. She's a psychologist. She works with somatic healing, but her point of view is all of the things that we are seeing or noticing much more of, like irritable bowel and skin issues and pretty much anything, but high anxiety states, etc. She's just like, part of the problem is we're believing we have a problem. So then you get inside of the It's like, was the problem that my skin reacted to the soap, or was the problem that my skin reacted to the soap and then I had a story about what that meant and the drama that I added to it that was actually the problem? Because one is just a reaction, but then the story is kind of like coloring what energy you feel into it with or something. That is, yeah, really cool. I've got someone in my family that's got like really, really bad arthritis, and I have grown up with this person continually saying to me, you're going to end up with arthritis. And my answer to that has always been, that's not my story. And it's funny how with some things I absolutely 100%, I'm just like, that's just not my story. It's not going to happen to me. That's not how I'm choosing to have this experience. But then other things, you kind of go down the rabbit hole of, I think perimenopause though too, it's almost the same as the soap example. I should say to everybody, I've had very little sleep. So if I'm not making much sense, please bear with me today. But where I was going with that is it the symptom that we're experiencing, or is it the fact that a lot of us are still trying to be at the springtime of our lives or the summer of our lives where we've got endless energy and we're able to juggle really easily and stress resilience is a given and whatever. And so is it the symptom itself that is causing the pain, or is it the fact that we are not allowing for change and being in different cycles and seasons and just going with it rather than saying that's actually a problem, like that's something I have to fix or have to, like that kind of, I heard someone say the other day, my body's betraying me. And I was like, whoa, be really careful what you speak into reality, because I don't want to be saying that story.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? That sometimes
I think it's a bit of both what you said, because it seems to me that if we look at the whole menopausal transition as a rite of passage, if we understand it as a rite of passage, the menopausal transition, then it's not designed to be necessarily a walk in the park, right?
Yes.
Because we're supposed to change.
Yes.
So we go through, it seems like there's this, as opposed to the dominant narrative, which will say your hormones are going crazy and deficient.
Blah, blah.
Well,
You're
to
deficient.
me, it's
anyway.
seems that there's this beautiful and brilliant dance of the hormones to bring us into a sensitive time. Mm-hmm. And it's not unlike when a woman is pregnant and also postpartum, that the body like moves into a different level of sensitivity for a good purpose. So it's really obvious when we're pregnant that if you're working too hard and too stressed and you're not eating well, the body's going to react really quickly to protect you and the baby. Mm-hmm. And doctors know this. So they won't say to a woman, oh, you've got all these symptoms. Well, that must be your crazy hormones.
Yes.
Well, are you working too hard? How are you eating? Are you taking, vitamins or whatever? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, have 2 weeks off work. So we see that for a pregnant woman. But when it comes to menopause, we're like in the thick of life, so many things going on. We have no understanding of this spiritual time of change that we're supposed to go through, this rite of passage, this graduation to becoming an elder. Mm-hmm. This is a time of transformation. Mm-hmm. So, if we're off balance in any way, and for so many women, as I see it, it's the emotional side that we're so caught up in the I'm not enough and other things. But it also could be, you don't have a clean diet or you're not moving. But I think if the emotional side is in balance, then you'll sort of like tune into your intuition more about, this would be good for me. I can move a bit. I can eat like a bit more fruit, veggies, whatever. So there's purpose that is so often ignored about this beautiful time. It really is. And women, I know for women, if they're experiencing symptoms, like I've been there, I know what it is. And I can come and say, your symptoms are a gift. And you're like, no, they're not gift. They're awful. So I know that. And so here's the other piece, right? Not only is this part of the design to wake us up, but we can have a different experience of symptoms. So, for example, after I had that, I talked about being at school and then having symptoms, them going away. Mm-hmm. So then there was another time that I remember there was some online bullying around my work, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was having a certain experience of it and feeling very offended that I had been censored, actually. Yes. And so I started having night sweats. Mm. Now, by that stage, I knew what that meant. It meant that I was off balance. It meant that I was having some like stormy thinking going on. And there was nothing I needed to do. Mm-hmm. So instead of like lying in bed at 3 a.m., sweating, thinking, this is terrible. Oh, I
Adding
teach
the
this stuff.
story. Yes.
What's going on? You know,
Yep.
and how am I going to cope tomorrow? And no, it was just like, oh, this is so interesting. I'm so, I still have a lot of thinking going on about what's going on with this online stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll just, I'm just waiting for a new insight to come up around what to do. And it took a few days. And then I was like, oh, it's really clear. I'm just going to write an email and I'm going to let it go. And that was it. Night sweats finished.
Yeah.
So, even, the symptoms are intelligent. And even when they come, we can have a variety of experiences of them. And if we learn to trust our body and leave that betrayal story, that crazy hormone story to the side, this journey becomes easier. And we have new expectations and we have new love and respect for our body. And that transforms our journey through midlife change.
100%.
And we're supposed to learn this stuff. This is what I really truly believe. It's like in our 20s and 30s, our divine system allows us to muck around and see what we learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it comes to midlife and it's like, oh, you want to age well and happiness and joy and good health? Like, you need to learn something about health now. And some people, maybe they learned it before. But for so many of us, it happens at this time. Yes. And it's brilliant. Wow. And then when we come through this this time of transition and we move towards that elder status, we're actually going to have something to contribute to the world because we're going to be wiser, because we've changed. So this whole idea of no change, don't change. We don't want to change. No, we do need to change. Just like when we were teenagers, we don't want to be stuck in our childhood maturity of being a 10-year-old.
Good Lord.
We're supposed to, graduate and understand what we love and our passions and our responsibilities in our life, take it into our hands. And the same thing is going on at midlife. It's not a malfunction. It's a brilliant design.
Yeah, I so agree. We were just talking before we started recording about the beautiful Claudia Davidson, who was on the week before this episode will come out. And I really loved what she was saying the same thing as what we're saying here, slightly different language, but her thing is, the narrative of the journey. So we can say this is like gloom and doom and it's horrible because I'm sweaty and I'm this and I'm that or whatever. And like, I woke up at 3:00 last night and I was like, I was tempted by the yellow slippery slide that's like, oh my God, I've got such a big day tomorrow. And instead I was like, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get up and make myself a cup of cinnamon tea and I'm going to very quietly move into my office, put my reading light on and just color in for a couple of hours. Oh my God, I was so in need of time by myself. Yes, maybe not in the middle of the night would have been nice, but that is actually what I needed rather than the sleeping time. It was just to be awake but quiet because I've had a lot of outward stuff happening, lots of balls in the air. And I hadn't really connected the dots around that until waking up. And I'm like, of course, I haven't been nourishing. I have a very high need for solo time, just be, not to be doing anything in particular, just to be in my own space, particularly quiet. I've got these awesome earplugs that are amazing, like completely noise cancelling. So I put them in and I'm just like, it's like I'm underwater. I love that feeling. And I was like, oh, that is so much better than I could have been, which would have been, even this time last year, waking up at 3:00 going, oh my God, go back to sleep. And they're just adding so much more pain and suffering to myself for no reason, because I was still not going to be able to get back to sleep. It was the same end result, but I would have poured on the drama and the horror about not sleeping because I do love to sleep. Yeah. And I'm just like, there's a purpose to that. And if we frame it, and as you're saying about the pregnancy and postpartum, I feel the same about puberty. Like, we don't expect our kids to go through puberty without having space to process and, a chance to kind of, transition to a different phase of themselves and do this developmental thing, which is really messy when it's happening at the time, potentially. But it is all it's the grand plan, and I don't think that we have to argue about it. And that's why I'm so irritated at the moment and I think maybe I need to just remove myself from the menopause space for a little bit, but the medicalized, like the hormone deficiency approach to menopause, I'm like, how is your body deficient when it is doing what it's actually designed to do? I don't understand that. Like, it doesn't go together, at least in my view of universe. But I also think that that is setting up more of the narrative, like you were saying. We don't want to be changing. And it's like, so what? We're going to try and stay exactly the same as what we are in our 40s and early 50s for the rest of our lives? Like, who wants to be, like, where's the evolution or the next step or the whatever to step into? And I just think it kind of goes hand in hand. It's like, if you're saying I'm hormone deficient, you're almost saying aging is a problem and, you know, the cycle of nature is a problem. And it's like, well, do we say to nature, don't have a spring after winter? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And it irritates me, which probably just means I need to just be a little bit more, what's that word? Discerning with where I'm putting my attention.
I mean, when you see that it's all actually a business plan,
100%.
then, you know, it's not like, you know, we can have a different experience of it. We can say, well, it's their business plan. It's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's what's playing out. It's a business plan. And I often, you know, when people come and say, oh, it's the, you know, hormone deficiency disease, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, well, why is that exactly? You know, is there a bug in our design? Is that what you're suggesting? And the only answer that's ever given is, once we never used to live beyond menopause. And that's nonsense. Because we've always, as far as we can see through literature, lived beyond menopause. Mm-hmm. And the mistake that's made is with average life expectancy data that they don't take into account. You know, 16th century England, the average life expectancy was under 40. Mm-hmm. That isn't because women were dropping off at that age. You know, no. It is because there was incredibly high infant and child mortality that brought down the average life expectancy at the age of life expectancy. But once you moved into adulthood and you moved past that very sensitive infant and child time, then you had a good chance of living decades beyond menopause. And that's what we see in hunter-gatherer societies today. So, but you still have these doctors making this claim that, oh, yes, you know, Victorian times, we never lived beyond menopause. Well, if they're not getting that right, I encourage women to say, well, what else aren't they getting right? Yeah. Because what is the reason that our body that does such, you know, it's such an abundance of miracles right there, right now, that we don't have to manage. Mm-hmm. I do not manage my digestion. I do not manage, you know, the water in my eyes to keep it moist. I do not manage, like, whatever's going on. I do not manage it. I do not manage my heart, my lungs. So why do I think I need to go in and manage my endocrine system and tell it what hormones it needs and when, unless I buy into this idea that by, you know, birth, I'm designed to malfunction. Yeah. And I don't buy into that. And it's because that's not my experience of my body whatsoever. And that twist, you know, the whole business plan is to get women to not have the trust in their body, to not believe that they can self-heal, to not believe that their body knows exactly what they need, because that sells products. You know, when does fear and health ever go together? Never. Always worsens outcomes. And around perimenopause and menopause, it's exactly the same. You tell a woman to fear this time. And I've heard now women in their 30s now fearing menopause. It's like, wow. Like, can you imagine if that's what we told girls who were 10? Oh, you're going to get this period and it's going to be awful and you're going to be bleeding and it's going to be terrible. Of course they'd have a terrible experience.
Well, exactly. But don't you think we're almost doing that anyway? Because, like, my generation was certainly, as soon as you had any issues with menstrual cycle at all, you went on the pill. So even at 15, 16, we are giving a message to girls to say, your body doesn't know what it's doing. You know, there's something that we need to do to intervene because your body hasn't got this sorted somehow. And so I almost wonder whether we've just been, I shouldn't say we, but a lot of people
we've accepted,
have brought into the you know, contraceptive pill is the, you know, amazing. And, you know, talk about birth rates. It's like, let's go back to the beginning of why the pill was so, you know, like, it's like, let's bring the patriarchy in and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I just think that if we were giving people in the 80s and 90s the message that they couldn't trust their body and that they should take sugar pills or not take sugar pills and never bleed for years and years and years. I had friends that, like, literally didn't have periods for years because it was easier. And I'm like, but it's not how we're meant to be, because nature knows what it's doing. And I think, like, I always come back to when I used to coach and I was ever working around that I'm not good enough, or, I'm not loved, I'm not, deserving, whatever. I'm like, I'm a biologist by training. Do you know how many amazing, intricate processes are happening right now? So the very fact that you actually got here is a miracle in itself. So you can't argue any point of view about yourself and how flawed you are that I will actually agree with, because it's miraculous. Like if you look into all the biological processes, and that's really the foundation of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm interested when you are talking with women about the wisdom of their bodies, and you have the kind of response but it's horrible and it's hard and whatever. How do you approach that with people? Because I feel like when we are out of balance away from our truth, like I've certainly had a very tricky time in the last 12 months, and it's certainly provided me with lots of ways to look at things that I'm doing that are not sustainable or not healthy or not whatever. So there's been a lot of learning in it. But I think that some of the people that are listening will be listening and going, oh, it's all right for you to talk like that, or whatever. What's your approach to that when someone says, but it's so hard?
Right. I appreciate that it's so hard. And every woman will do what she feels she needs to do, in the moment to reduce her experience of suffering.
Yes.
And, she needs to tap into her guidance to see what that is. And, that may involve, medication or not, or herbs or whatever it is. She'll do that. And I say that there's a place for that if we're suffering so much and, the mind is moving at that speed of like, this is terrible, like if there's something that can turn down the volume a little bit, then that can be really useful, because then we can just rest a bit more in silence and wonder, right? Wonder about what's going on. And then the question I love to ask is, well, what does your body want you to know? So it's a process of coming back into trust in the body. It's a process of leaving those myths and those stories about the body behind.
Yeah.
And as we see more about why it doesn't make sense that the body would betray us or work in a sort of malfunctioning way, then we can rest more in a sort of relaxed state and things start to come to mind. Right. So like, it's not me to tell any woman what she needs to do, but I create an environment that helps her listen in and allow her intuition to guide her. And it's almost like our intuition, what I call the wiser woman, is bubbling to the surface, like on purpose. Because if we've lived lives that are out of balance, if there are passions that we know light us up, but we've put them on the back burner, since we were 14 or whatever it is, right? Like our body wants us, the divine energy in our body wants us to reconnect with that again. And to perhaps look at our relationships that aren't, nourishing. And that doesn't mean blow up the relationship. It might just mean like adjustments need to be made, because we deserve to live a more, a gentler life than many of us are living. But we think, oh no, this is just it. This is just stress. This is just there are many more opportunities that we can, just through shifting consciousness, allow to appear. And we'll say, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe once a week I will do painting, and maybe that becomes twice a week, or maybe, and we start feeling things again that we've just put off. And like I said, the intelligence of the body wants us to connect that way. Why? Because it's healthy. The body's always trying to bring us back to a path of better health. That's what it's trying to do. So, I can't say, for some women, it will be, start walking in the forest. Is that a prescription for all women? No. But for some women, it might be. For some women, it might be painting. For some women, it might be singing. For some women, but everyone needs to get more in touch with this intuition that's bubbling to the surface. And that will guide us. And again, it comes from trusting that it's there. And moving away from that story of malfunction, coming back into the intelligence within.
No, sorry, something that came to me really clearly the other day when I was just sitting with my legs up the wall and my eyes closed, and I was like, yeah, that's another thing that the inner wise woman has been calling me to look at, is some uncomfortable truths So truths that I've always known, if I'm honest, but I've never wanted to delve into them. So there's been a sense there for at least a decade about some of the things that I'm thinking about. But I feel like perimenopause has forced, it's like they won't be ignored anymore. Like the voice has always been there, but the voice is getting more and more crystal clear and more sure. And I feel like sometimes like I'm going through a period where I've got more, definitely more warmth in my body. I wouldn't say like drenched in sweat or anything, but just that warmth. And I'm like, oh, okay. About 12 months ago, I was really in the thick of that. And it was really that I got the sense that it was like trial by fire, like you're transforming, and fire is one of the most transformative ways of doing this. And literally, you're being called to burn away some of the things that you've allowed through to the keeper, like, you know, unbalanced relationships or whatever, where I've settled for less than what I know that I should, but I've never, you know, I've never set the boundary for myself, or I've never chosen myself. Actually, when you were talking before, something that also is coming to my mind is that the self-rejection, you know, when you're saying not good enough, and then if we do get exposed to a story of, oh, your body is somehow deficient, it's almost like then we're rejecting ourselves all over again. So it's like, okay, maybe
double
that's
whammy.
That's calling your attention. And I think too, like it's certainly been definitely the case for me and for a lot of the people that I talk to, is that I always say less tolerance for bullshit, but it's just being clearer about what is and isn't for you, which I think is such a gift. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No more of the estrogen making me accommodate. Pretty much. I'm like, no, I won't be available for that. No, I won't be giving you an excuse why. I'll just be saying no, which I think is so much easier and simpler, like you were saying before.
It's part of the design, I think. You know, it's part of the brilliant design. You know, when we look at what happens to women in motherhood, right, that transition from I look after myself to, oh my goodness, there's this little being that I now need to put first. Yes. So, like, can you imagine, like, the unbelievable, you know, change that needs to go on in a person's psyche to be able to do that when, you know, there's a healthy attachment to the baby. And then we're moving on to a new stage. And I hear from so many women about, I just don't give a bleep, you know, anymore about what people think about me, about my, you know, people expect of me, et cetera, that it is definitely part of the design, that coming into yourself. And why? Because it's healthy. Because if we live with those stresses all the time of, oh, I just need to, you know, be a little less than myself, or just compromise, or, you know, not speak my voice, or not, you know, do what I'm passionate about, then, you know, it's living with stress, just, you know, put in a box inside. And the body doesn't want us to live that way because it's not healthy. So it's going to come to the surface. And then there's this thing which is made up called the midlife crisis, right? Which is a cultural made up thing, right? It's just a misunderstanding of these uncomfortable feelings that we can experience at midlife, which is the brilliance coming forward. You know, it's the intuition coming forward. It's the wiser woman coming forward. But because we don't have the level of understanding to see what's going on, then we think, oh, this feels terrible. Boom. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to just like explode it all. But no, it's like, this is something needs to shift, but it doesn't need to be explosive. Yes. If we understand, again, that our default is this joy, love, peace, we can operate from there. And we can say, wow, what would be loving for me? What would be loving for me? Wow, that's revolutionary for a woman to ask that so often, right?
What a question.
Right? And what would be from a point, like if I'm feeling love and staying within this feeling of love, what then? What feels true? Because that's where truth lies, within the love, not within the drama. Yeah. We can play in the drama. Yeah. Like I said, you know, that's available to us. But the love is where the truth lies. Yeah. And it's so simple when we see it. And when we work from there, like things just fall into place in amazing ways.
And there's no striving. And I love what you're saying, because it reminds me of something that I used to ask myself when I was first kind of becoming aware of this like hero's cape thing that I used to do. I'd be like, am I giving from a sense of generosity, from like resources that I have to spend and invest like this because I choose to, or am I giving because I believe it's a role that I have to play and I'm obligated to play it? So both are giving, two very different energies and feel completely different. And I cannot say how much the sense of being able to give through generosity has felt. And I really only feel like I have really sat from that energy in the last 12 months around certain relationships in my life, not with everyone, obviously, but around certain relationships, not feeling like I have to say yes, but actually choosing. And it's so lovely to reform a relationship with yourself where you know that you will actually filter the question through. Like I always say, like, I feel like I have a lot less resources at the moment in terms of, I don't have never ending energy. At least that's what I feel like at the moment. Whereas in my 20s and my 30s, I could go forever in a day and, you know, used to manage a sleep lab. I did 24-hour shifts and just keep bopping along and whatever, because I got a lot of, I don't know, I just enjoyed it. But now I'm like, no. You want me after 5 in the afternoon? No, it's not going to happen. But it feels quite miraculous to find a sense of that. And it's not even putting yourself first. It's feeling into the resources that you have at your disposal and then being really reverent with them rather than just throwing them around like, you know, I've got everything in the tank, because I don't. And I think that that's the other gift as well. And that the trial by fire and the wise woman. And as we're talking, a lot of the themes we're talking about, like, I really love the traditional Chinese medicine way of looking at things, and particularly from a 5 elements lens. And the feeling that they have, or the beliefs that traditional Chinese medicine have, is a lot around that the perimenopause transition is like the autumn time. And that is when, you know, the winds come and the leaves that are not meant to be there for the next season get blown to the ground, and it's about inward facing and it's about clarity, those beautiful clear autumn skies where everything is very obvious. And I kind of, yeah, there's a joy in that, because you just know, like you were saying, like the wheel is turning. And I kind of get a bit excited sometimes when I feel like, oh, I feel like there's something else shifting. Like I definitely feel like, I don't know, my new thing at the moment is hair loss. I'm like shedding hair like I don't know what. It's like me and the dogs, which I vacuum every day. But I do feel like there's another quickening happening in myself where I'm like, oh, I thought that I had sort of answered the call of a lot of things internally, but it feels like there's another, we're in the spiral again. Let's see what this one calls us to do. But it's cool. I love the feeling of, yeah, it being an evolution. And I do really feel like if we have a positive frame of reference that, yes, no doubt, sometimes, particularly if you've got, you know, significant symptoms, they are tricky, but they do have a message and there is a purpose. And if the purpose is a portal of rebirth, then I'm in for it. But if you tell me I just have to live with night sweats, I'm like, why? You know?
Right.
But I'm down for the rebirth. So, yeah, it's a much nicer way of feeling into it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the fact that we don't many role models that we can look to in the post-menopausal, you know, who are living their best life in the post-menopausal years. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of women out there, but they're just not, you know, offered to us through our normal, you know, society. But, you know, I'm in touch with post-menopausal women who are living their best lives, not because they're medicated, because they've gone through this rite of passage. They're now connected to their passions. Yes. They've got more time. They've got more energy, and they've gone through that hormonal fluctuation, which requires us to rest more, requires us to go more inside. But now they're blossoming again. Yeah. They've moved through it.
The second spring.
You know, exactly. And so if we heard more about that as we move through this transition, we would be excited. Yep. We'd have something to look forward to. But instead, all we hear is, oh, it's downhill from now on, and you're going to get, you know, diseases appear to be inevitable. And it's not. If you live a life out of balance for longer, you're more likely to get a disease. Like that's the maths of it, right? Yes. But it's like, if you live a healthy life, your body is designed to keep on supporting you live a healthy life. Yep. If you fall off the path, your body will speak to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to speak to you in louder voices.
Exactly.
Right? It can't send you an email. It sends you emotions and it sends you symptoms. And then we have the free will to interpret them, But if we can step into that, wow, what does my body want me to know? What is this brilliance coming from?
I really love that question.
What can I do?
My body want me to know?
Yeah. So women normally, there's an answer that normally comes through and then they don't want to know. Because it's like, no, surely it's not that. But it's just like listening, and the wisdom comes in quietly. It doesn't come in like the marching band. It's not like, oh yeah, that you must, Yes. No, that's the stories. Okay, we can hang out there. But if we want wisdom, it's the quiet, calm voice that we can hear. Yeah. And we know when we're hearing that. And it's so beautiful because it's the guidance system. It's divinity in your pocket. It's always with you. We just need to get quiet and we can start hearing it more. Divinity in your pocket. I like that. I really like that. Very cool. I have enjoyed this chat immensely. Thank you. Thank you for your grace. Tania and I have booked this 3 times and we got it. 3rd time lucky. Yay. Could you please tell everybody where we can find you and your books and your work in the world, please? Thank you. So thewiserwoman.com. And I just like to say, that's not me. That's in every one of us. Yeah. And, she's waiting to be found. So it's thewiserwoman.com. And you can find me on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. And my book, The Wiser Woman's Guide to Perimenopause and Menopause, is available where all good books are sold. We will link everything in the show notes anyway. So we will make sure that people can easily click and find. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a beautiful way to spend an afternoon chatting to you. And I'm sure our audience will very much enjoy. And thank you for being part of, a different narrative around menopause that does not say that we are in any state deficient, but actually there's some magic in process. We are upgrading, recalibrating to the wiser woman, or to being more aligned with the inner wiser woman. Anyway. Yeah. It's really, when we can lean into the brilliance of it all, we have an amazing journey. So all for the best. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. And if you enjoyed this ep, please share it with another midlife friend or take the opportunity to go and rate and review the show on your favorite listening platform. All of these things really help us to reach more women in midlife. Now, I don't know if you know, but I am both a storyteller who helps healers and helpers capture and communicate their work through the magic of storytelling. And I'm a midlife self-care coach who is super passionate about helping other women reframe perimenopause and midlife as a powerful and purposeful time of transformation. To find out more about me and my work, you can head to Instagram at Kylie Patchett or my website, kpcreative.com.au, and that is kpcreative.com.au, and you will find all of those links in the show notes. Have a spectacular day, and may you be setting yourself wild and finally fucking free.